The Bahrain Grand Prix confirmed Mercedes need to make major advancements and look for fresh approaches to bettering its vehicle. Mercedes is currently in serious difficulty. Despite their best efforts to improve their aero concept, things only got worse. Additionally, Mercedes has ended up being the fourth fastest on the grid thanks to Aston Martin using another Red Bull innovation. We're going to start talking about the situation that Mercedes is currently facing right after qualifying on Saturday. Since only one day before the race, the team was feeling confident about their chances. Because even if the team admitted it was stupid to keep the concept for the 2022 car, there was something positive about how they performed in qualifying. It's not a particularly spectacular one, but it offers George Russell and Lewis Hamilton some optimism. The pair struggled on Friday for both single-lap and long-run performance, but tweaks made overnight led to a notable improvement that allowed them to qualify 6th and 7th. With Russell slightly ahead of Max Verstappen's pole position time and 0.632 seconds off it. According to trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin, we managed to solve a handful of the difficulties like the high-speed cornering following that. Both drivers were worried that qualifying would be more challenging and they would get caught up in the midfield group. Nevertheless, those adjustments ensured that Mercedes could stay in the lead group despite being the slowest of the 4 teams in the current category. Hamilton's biggest worry of not even qualifying for Q3 was postponed for the time being. That is all Mercedes has to hold on to after a dismal weekend, along with the notion that the car will be stronger in a race environment. "I thought it would have been worse than that," said Hamilton after Q3. "We did some great work overnight, the car felt much better this afternoon, and then qualifying was okay. I thought we'd be struggling to get into Q3, but we didn't. We were in there and in the fight." Although Hamilton believes the car has made progress in terms of the rear instability and traction constraint that were evident during testing, he still thinks these issues will negatively affect tire management in a race. "It was definitely better, but we are lacking overall downforce, particularly at the rear," said Hamilton when asked about the set improvements. "That's why we can't get on the power as early as the Red Bulls and Ferraris on a single lap, and that's why we struggle with DEG. So it's the same story as you had in previous years. Before last year we had better rear-end grip." In addition, Russell noted that Serre's performance was more important than he had anticipated it to be after Friday's practice. He stressed how much easier to handle the Mercedes W14 is than the vehicle from last year, which had issues with porpoising and bouncing. Mercedes has some solid foundations on which to expand, even though its full potential is debatable given that team principal Toto Wolff noted that the team needs to test out new ideas. "We expected to add a little bit of performance overnight, but the performance we added probably exceeded expectations," said Russell. "Ultimately, the car is feeling nice to drive, so we're in a much better starting place compared to W13. Now we can focus on adding global performance rather than spending 3/4 of the year problem solving." Wolff did not discount the team's title hopes on Saturday, but it is clear that Mercedes will need more time than just a few races to turn their car into a contender on merit. "Motor racing is crazy," said Wolff when asked about Hamilton's hopes of fighting for a record 8th driver's title. "I don't know what's going to happen this year. We may find a silver bullet next week and unlock 5/10 in the car. I haven't seen any silver bullets before, but you never know. But definitely mid-term and long-term, we just need to have a car that is able to make us fight for an 8th championship." But then on Sunday, everything went wrong, the car wasn't running well, and the team would like to swiftly forget the terrible outcome. If Mercedes wants to compete for race victories this year, they must decide quickly on their aero plan given their current state of crisis. The Bahrain Grand Prix on Sunday was dubbed one of the worst days in racing by Toto Wolff, who also cited Red Bull's 1-2 finish as a reminder of his team's prior dominance in Formula One. In Bahrain, Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell placed 5th and 7th, behind the 2 Red Bulls, Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin, and Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. Verstappen, who had an easy time from the start of the race onward, was 50 seconds ahead of Hamilton. "While one of the worst days in racing, really not good at all," Wolff said. "We were just lacking pace front, right and center. That's a reflection of the test because the Aston Martin is very fast, they deserve that. Red Bull is just on a different planet." Wolff claimed it reminded him of Mercedes' periods of supremacy over the previous 10 years. Wolff claimed Mercedes anticipated Red Bull to lead the field, but the margin between the W14 and the RB19 surprised them. "That is what hurts because they are so far ahead. It reminds me of our best years when we were pulled a second on everyone else," Wolff added. "That is the benchmark and we need to do one step after the other to come back, and we can do that? Absolutely we can. Since the next projected improvement for the season would only be worth 3/10. According to Wolff, the team must act immediately." Wolff also acknowledged on Saturday that Mercedes made a mistake by sticking with its 2022 design for this season. Wolff wasn't the only senior member of the Mercedes team to have unfavorable thoughts about the weekend. Andrew Shovlin, Mercedes director of trackside engineering, had no positive feelings at all about the outcome. The conclusion Chauvelin got from the Bahrain Grand Prix outcome is harsh. It was a very difficult Sunday. The gap to Red Bull is huge and we've got Aston Martin and Ferrari ahead of us as well, the 49-year-old Briton stated in a Mercedes press release. He continued, "Clearly, we have a lot of work ahead and we need to go back and come up with a plan to try and find improvements. We are lacking overall grip and, on a high degradation track like this, there was nothing that the drivers could do to attack." The lack of power was felt by the drivers themselves, as evidenced by Lewis Hamilton's comments following the race, in which he claimed that he was miles away from a podium finish based solely on performance and that he was fortunate to benefit from Charles Leclerc's retirement. Otherwise, he would have finished 6th. To describe Hamilton's response to the lack of a performance gain between 2022 and 2023, the word concern would not be accurate. "I don't really want to say too much. We've got to keep working. We know we're not where we need to be and we know that this isn't the right car. It's a difficult one. I've just got to try and stay positive and keep pushing the guys, keep trying to be a positive light for them and get the best points I can." His teammate Russell argued Mercedes had come back to reality after the team felt it could fight Ferrari and Aston Martin, relying on a qualifying effort that exceeded expectations. "Clearly that wasn't the case. We don't have enough performance on the car," Russell said. "We probably need to go back to the drawing board and keep on working. Today everything wasn't where we needed it to be, so there's work to do." George Russell even declared that after just one Grand Prix, he wouldn't be competing for any titles. The 24-year-old British driver is confident that Red Bull Racing will repeat as world champions in 2023, edging off Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin. "Red Bull have got this championship sewn up. I don't think anyone will be fighting with them this year. They should win every single race this year, is my bet," Russell said. At the Bahrain International Circuit, the Mercedes driver's own placing was no higher than 7th. 5th place was achieved by teammate Lewis Hamilton. The ease with which Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez operate the RB19 alarms Russell. "They've got it easy at the moment. They can do what they like. They might not be on pole all the time because we know Ferrari are very competitive in qualifying, but when it comes to race pace they're in a very strong position." What do you think about Mercedes' recent results and chances going forward? Tell us in the comments section below. When the next race rolls around, we'll be watching for Mercedes' response to this poor performance. We appreciate your interest and hope to see you in the upcoming video.